This is the story of how I got dragged behind a dog sled. How's it going, everyone? I am Mr. Slaughter, a high school science teacher, and this is Teacher Tries Dog Sledding. During my freshman year of college, I had an opportunity over winter break to go dog sledding up in the Boundary Waters. We didn't actually stop into the cabin itself right off the bat. We just kind of dropped our stuff and went straight for the doggos. These doggos were super friendly. I cannot emphasize that enough. The first dog I actually came in contact with was Circle, and the moment we actually met, she just jumped up and gave me the biggest and warmest hug I've ever gotten. I wasn't expecting it though, so we actually ended up falling back on the ground, which still wasn't even that bad because she gave me a bunch of kisses to make all of my wounds so much better. Needless to say, with how friendly Circle was right off the bat, she was my first pick for the dog sledding team that I was going to put together on this trip. My second choice was actually Willie, and he was so laid back, as you can tell from him wearing these sunglasses in this picture. He kept them on for about 10 minutes without even trying to throw them off his head or anything along those lines, which was awesome. It was nice to see. He was so laid back. On top of that, he was very excited when anyone gave him chin scratches. So the moment that I gave him chin scratches, that's all he wanted from me. He just loved the chin scratches. And as soon as I stopped the chin scratches to go back into the cabin to dry off, warm up, get some water, he would start barking the moment I left his sight, and I would have to come back in order to get him to stop barking and give him some more chin scratches, which was so cute. On the next day, our dog sledding teams were actually already put together. We didn't actually get to decide who was on our dog sledding team. However, Circle actually still did end up making it on my dog sledding team and was one of the leading dogs of my dog sled. Now, I was expecting to sit back and let the workers mush the dogs, but they actually let us mush the dogs, which, looking at the title of this video, is very problematic. I was so excited in that moment that I actually took the reins and started yelling mush. Yeah, the dogs weren't actually hooked up at that point. After the embarrassment actually passed and the dogs were actually hooked up to the sled, I gave it one more try and took off with the dogs. Now at this point, you think I would have asked what are some of the other words that I should know when leading the dogs on these trails in order to give them directions, but I didn't do that. I should have, but I didn't. As we started approaching the first turn, my heart started to panic a little bit because I didn't have any clue what I should say at that point in time to get the dogs to listen to me. However, they just started turning on their own. Turns out the dogs have run those trails so many times that they don't need directions from anyone that's actually mushing them. Thinking back, I got a little too confident at this point and started showboating by letting go of the handles and starting to do the Titanic position, which, knowing what I know now, is a bad idea because coming around the next turn is a tree stump that the workers don't tell you about is on those trails. This is the section of the trail that the workers just like to sit back and watch to see what happens. Most mushers just get a little frazzled, but they don't actually end up falling off the sled because they're holding on super tight to that rail. Not me, however, because I am still in the Titanic position, flying through the air. I did not have my hands on that rail, so when we hit that tree stump, it rocked me off and threw me into the snow, which wasn't a problem because I did land in some very soft snow. The problem, however, was that my shoelace on my boot got caught on the dog sled, so I ended up actually getting dragged along the trail for a little bit. I still didn't mind getting pulled along the trails for a set period of time because it kind of was like I was sledding along the trails and just using my body to go around the turns. It was actually quite fun up until the point where my jacket started pulling up snow inside. It was so cold, and by the time the dogs actually stopped and I opened up the jacket to let out the snow so I can warm back up, I just looked like a snowman stuck in this position. Still not the coldest I've ever been, however. We're gonna get to that. At the end of this trip, they had a polar plunge. Before we actually did the polar plunge, we went to the sauna right next to the lake to keep us super nice and toasty. Most of the people did it just once and called that good, which is what I was planning to do initially, at least up until the point where the workers told us that there was a record for how many times one person has done the polar plunge in 1 hour. The record was 10 times in 1 hour, which I knew I could beat. I could definitely beat that. They started the timer and I went in for my first polar plunge, which was so cold. My muscles just froze up and I couldn't move them at all. And the moment that I could start moving my muscles again, it just felt that all of my nerves were getting stabbed one by one all the way throughout my body. After crawling out of the water, the workers just stopped me. Mind you, I'm only in a swimsuit and I'm out in the middle of winter, freezing, and the workers just stop me. They tell me to wait a little bit before I actually go back to the sauna. And again, I was confused because I was in a swimsuit outside in the middle of winter. What? To my surprise, after being out in the cold air for a little bit, it actually started to feel warm. They were like, "Isn't this a crazy feeling?" And I was like, "Definitely, what is happening right now?" I am relaxed, warm, outside, in a swimsuit, in the middle of winter. What is happening? I ended up doing the polar plunge 8 more times, so I was right on track to break the previous record. At that point in time though, my body felt like parts of it were just going to snap off because of how cold they were. And another person in our group was at 16 polar plunges at that point in time. I decided then and there just to call it good and let the other person in our group continue to go about doing more polar plunges and raising the record even higher. They ended up actually getting, I believe, 23 polar plunges in an hour, which is ridiculous. I was at 9 and I felt like I needed to stay in the sauna for the next 4 hours just to warm up. Overall, this was an amazing adventure. There were other stories that I would like to share from this trip, but looking at the amount of time with this video already, I'm gonna cut it off and save those stories for another time. If you would like to see anything else from me, please leave a comment down below. And as always, stay curious, everyone.